Imagine looking out your window right now at a massive, gleaming machine sitting perfectly still in your driveway. You are essentially staring at a heavily financed $90,000 piece of industrial equipment that you use strictly to pick up groceries and commute to a climate-controlled office building. You justify the massive monthly payment by telling yourself you might need to haul lumber someday, or maybe tow a boat you do not even own yet. But the cold, hard reality is that the vast bed of that truck has carried exactly 2 bags of potting soil and a cooler in the last 12 months. If we are being completely honest, you could have easily rented a commercial utility van for $30 a day to do that exact same job. Instead, you are bleeding out an absurd amount of cash every single month to maintain a blue-collar costume. The global automotive industry has completely hijacked your financial future by aggressively convincing you that buying a massive, heavy-duty truck is somehow a mandatory symbol of your capability, your strength, and your success. Today, we are completely ripping the mask off this pavement princess epidemic. We are going to expose the catastrophic mathematics behind these vanity purchases, exactly how the dealerships manipulate your psychology to trap you in debt, and why your desire to sit 6 inches higher in traffic is actively destroying your ability to build generational wealth. The manipulation starts the very second you walk onto the dealership lot. When you sit down in that glass office, the finance manager does not actually sell you a vehicle. They sell you a highly manipulated, carefully constructed financial product designed to completely obscure the true cost of your decision. They use a tactic known as the 4 square method, strategically hiding the catastrophic total purchase price of the vehicle by aggressively stretching the loan term out to 84 or even 96 months. That is 8 solid years of your life tied to a depreciating asset. They train your brain to focus entirely on the $1,200 monthly payment, completely ignoring the fact that you will be paying off a piece of metal for longer than most modern marriages actually last. The average new pickup truck in America right now costs roughly $62,000, and that is just for the baseline models. If you want the luxury trims, the King Ranch, the Platinum, or whatever rugged-sounding branding the marketing consultants decided to use this year, you are easily looking at a sticker price hovering between $75,000 and $95,000. Let that absolute insanity sink in for a moment. The median household income in this country is roughly $84,000. People are willingly financing a single vehicle that costs more than their entire family earns in a full calendar year. But the $1,200 monthly payment is just the absolute baseline of your financial punishment. The hidden carrying costs are where the real devastation occurs. Let us break down the daily reality of keeping this beast on the road. A massive heavy-duty truck gets roughly 15 miles to the gallon on a good day, while a standard boring commuter sedan easily pulls over 35 miles per gallon. If you drive a totally average 15,000 miles a year, that massive fuel efficiency gap means you are burning an extra $200 every single month purely in gasoline costs. Then you have to factor in the insurance premiums. You are not insuring a basic work truck, you are insuring a $90,000 luxury asset. If you get into an accident and total a basic sedan, the insurance company loses $30,000. If you total your luxury truck, they lose triple that amount. Because of that massive replacement cost, your premium easily spikes an extra $80 a month. Then we have to look at the specialized maintenance. Those massive, aggressive all-terrain tires that you completely do not need for driving on suburban asphalt will easily cost you $2,000 to replace. Because everything on the truck is scaled up, the oil changes require more oil, the brake rotors are massive and expensive, and your local government will heavily tax the registration of a high-value vehicle. When you add the fuel, the insurance, the tires, the maintenance, and the taxes, your initial $1,200 payment has quietly mutated into a suffocating $1,700 a month financial anchor. If you want to stop falling into these incredibly toxic consumer debt traps and actually learn the precise mechanics of wealth creation, make sure you hit that subscribe button to Finance with Max right now. We are actively exposing the financial illusions that keep the modern middle class perpetually broke. And having you in this community is exactly how we push back against the system together. Now we have to talk about a completely new mathematical disaster that most people ignore until it is entirely too late, which is the negative equity trap and the 5-year depreciation cliff. The absolute second you drive that pristine truck off the dealership lot and the tires touch public pavement, it loses thousands of dollars in value. Vehicles are not investments, they are rapidly decaying assets. By the time you reach year 4 or 5 of your massive 8-year loan, you enter a highly dangerous financial zone. Because you stretched the loan out for so long to get a lower payment, you have barely made a dent in the actual principal balance. You owe the bank $65,000 on a truck that the open market now values at maybe $45,000. You are $20,000 deeply underwater. When the initial thrill of the truck completely wears off and you get tired of struggling to make the massive payments, you will inevitably try to trade it in for something cheaper. But the dealership will simply take that $20,000 of dead, negative equity and aggressively roll it right into your next car loan. You end up paying interest on a truck you do not even own anymore. It is a terrifying financial death spiral that traps people in a cycle of auto debt for their entire adult lives. Let us look at the massive opportunity cost of this decision, because this is where your financial future is truly won or lost. Think about building your net worth the exact same way you would approach a massive architectural project. If you are designing a towering, resilient structure, you absolutely must pour a deep, unshakable concrete foundation first. If you spend all your capital on a flashy, expensive facade while building on quicksand, the entire structure will inevitably collapse under its own weight. Buying this truck is exactly like building on quicksand. Imagine an alternative universe where you completely ignore your ego and buy a reliable 3-year-old commuter sedan for roughly $28,000. Your total monthly transportation costs, including the lower insurance, the cheaper gas, and the affordable maintenance, drops to roughly $800 a month. That single logical decision leaves you with a massive surplus of nearly $900 in excess cash flow every single month compared to the truck. Instead of setting fire to that $900, imagine if you aggressively deployed it into the financial markets. If you consistently invested that monthly surplus into high-growth technology funds, foreign stock ETFs, or a broad market index fund averaging a conservative 8% return, the compounding mathematics go completely nuclear. Over the exact same 7-year period that you would have been paying off the truck, that redirected cash flow grows into a liquid investment portfolio worth over $100,000. You are literally sacrificing a 6-figure financial foundation just to look slightly more rugged at a suburban stoplight. You could use that $100,000 to completely change your career trajectory, start a business, or secure your family's future. Instead, you are sitting in gridlocked traffic, listening to a podcast, and actively burning the capital that was supposed to buy your ultimate freedom. You are voluntarily subsidizing the massive quarterly earnings reports of a global auto manufacturer, while your own personal net worth completely stagnates. Before we dive into the severe lifestyle consequences of this debt and exactly how you can escape this trap, take a quick second to hit subscribe to Finance with Max. Your support tells the algorithm that real, unfiltered financial literacy actually matters, and it ensures you never miss the advanced wealth-building blueprints I drop every single week to help you optimize your capital. The damage of this vehicle goes far beyond your investment accounts. It actively warps every single major life decision you make for the next decade. Let us talk about what happens when you finally decide you want to stop renting and buy a home. Mortgage lenders do not care about your ego. They care about a very specific metric called your debt-to-income ratio. They demand that your total monthly debt obligations remain under a certain percentage of your gross income before they will ever approve you for a mortgage. That $1,700 a month truck expense completely detonates your ratio. Before you even apply for the home loan, your vehicle has already consumed roughly a quarter of your acceptable debt limit. You effectively lock yourself completely out of the real estate market. You cannot buy the comfortable house in the good neighborhood because the bank sees you as an absolute financial liability. You prioritized renting a temporary identity from a car dealership over actually owning the roof over your head. Furthermore, this truck transforms you into a total hostage in your own career. When you are carrying that massive monthly obligation, you become completely terrified of any disruption to your income stream. You become highly risk-averse. You cannot boldly walk away from a toxic manager who treats you terribly because you desperately need the next paycheck to satisfy the auto lender. You cannot take the exciting leap into a new entrepreneurial venture because a slow first year of business would immediately result in the bank repossessing your vehicle. You cannot aggressively negotiate for a higher salary because the sheer terror of getting fired paralyzes you. The automotive industry convinced you that buying this massive, powerful machine would make you feel incredibly capable and free. But the brutal irony is that the $90,000 status symbol actually turned you into a fragile wage slave, entirely dependent on a corporate job just to keep up appearances. The psychological weight of this situation is absolutely exhausting. There is a well-documented psychological phenomenon called hedonic adaptation. As human beings, we rapidly get completely used to our surroundings. The very first week you drive that massive truck, climbing into the luxurious leather cabin feels incredible. You feel a massive surge of dopamine and a false sense of superiority. But by week 12, it is just the thing that gets you to work. The new car smell completely fades, the thrill evaporates, and you stop noticing the premium features entirely. The dopamine is gone, but the crushing monthly payment remains. The insurance bill arrives like clockwork. The massive fuel costs drain your checking account every single week. You traded a lifetime of permanent financial stability and peace of mind for a temporary, fleeting emotion that barely lasted a single financial quarter. If you are already trapped in this situation and the math is keeping you awake at night, I am going to give you the exact advice that your pride desperately wants you to ignore. You need to sell the truck immediately. I do not care if you are currently completely underwater on the loan. I do not care if taking the loss feels like a massive, humiliating defeat. You are not captaining a sinking ship, and there is absolutely no nobility in drowning your financial future just to preserve your ego. You need to take the brutal financial hit right now, sell the asset, buy a highly reliable, boring used car in cash, and aggressively stop the bleeding. Yes, you will lose a chunk of money on the transaction today, but you will lose significantly less money than if you stubbornly keep making those massive payments for another 5 excruciating years. You have to amputate the bad debt to save the rest of your financial life. If you do not own the truck yet, but you have been spending your evenings scrolling through dealership websites and convincing yourself that you deserve a reward for your hard work, I am going to save you $80,000 and a decade of unnecessary anxiety right now. Do not do it. Turn off the computer and walk away. Go test drive the absolute most boring practical sedan you can possibly find. Sit in the driver's seat and realize that it is quiet. It has air conditioning, and it accomplishes the exact same primary goal of moving you from your house to your destination. But more importantly, realize that when you are sitting in traffic in that boring car, you will not be doing terrified mental math about whether you can afford to buy groceries that week. The automotive marketing machine has spent billions of dollars perfectly crafting a narrative that you are simply not enough unless you are driving their heavily overpriced machinery. They have completely weaponized your natural human insecurities and mathematically converted them into a massive stream of monthly payments. The only possible way to win this rigged game is to see completely through the illusion and refuse to play. You do not need the truck. You never actually needed the truck. What you desperately need is a massive margin of safety in your monthly budget. You need absolute optionality in your career choices, and you need the profound ability to sleep peacefully at night without checking your banking app in a cold sweat. The boring sedan mathematically hands you that freedom on a silver platter. The heavy-duty truck completely strips it away from you. When you finally realize that true financial power does not come from what you drive, but from the capital you actually retain and invest, your entire life changes. Make sure you hit subscribe to Finance with Max right now, so we can keep destroying these financial myths and building your true wealth together. Trust the math, ignore the marketing, and I will see you in the next one.